We should be very suspicious of the state usurping the role of pastors and Sunday school teachers. If you want to deepen your faith, we have churches on every street corner. A lot of them don't have a lot of people in them. This, again, is giving Christianity and religious people broadly a bad name. Because this is what people think about religious people, that we're more interested in imposing our faith or our values or our beliefs on others instead of living it out ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, I look across my church on Sunday mornings and I see a lot of gray hair. I worry about the future of my church, of my faith in this country.
Okay, so James Tallerico, Democrat from Texas. He goes on Joe Rogan, and you know what Rogan's audience is like? Pretty right-wing crowd, so already that's a tough room. But he gets in there and just starts calling out the hypocrisy in a lot of this Christian values politics right to Rogan's face. No script, nothing. And honestly, Rogan didn't really see it coming. If you're new to him, this isn't even his first big moment. He blew up a while back when Texas was trying to put the 10 Commandments in public school classrooms, and he stood up and called out how hypocritical that whole push was. That's basically what got him on Rogan's radar in the first place. And here's the thing, this guy is on a serious roll right now. He just won the Democratic Senate primary in Texas, beat Jasmine Crockett, and now he's headed for a big November showdown. So this isn't some random viral moment, this is somebody with real momentum behind him. So tell me what you think of him in the comments. Now that he's the nominee, is he the kind of voice the left actually needs going into November? Or are you not really feeling it? Curious where you all land. Let's get into the video.
Part of keeping the Sabbath holy is not working on the Sabbath.
That is, yeah.
What day is the Jewish Sabbath?
It is on Saturday.
And what day is it today?
It is Saturday. Here we are.
The Christian Sabbath is what day?
Sunday, in honor of the day that Jesus rose from the dead.
And we're scheduled to give this bill a final vote on what day of the week?
It's ironic, isn't it?
Would you be willing to postpone your bill so that we're not breaking the 10 Commandments by working on the Jewish or Christian Sabbath?
I love that you said that because
you're saying that you'd rather tell people to follow the 10 Commandments than follow it yourself?
This is exactly the kind of Democrat we need more of. Watch how he does it. No shouting, no insults, just questions. And the right walks right into it. Fourth commandment, keep the Sabbath. Don't work on it. Jewish Sabbath is Saturday, and today is Saturday. So when's your final vote scheduled? On the Sabbath. The same Republicans demanding we bolt the 10 Commandments to every classroom wall can't get, through their own calendar without breaking one. They want the commandments enforced on your kids, never on themselves. That's the hypocrisy in a nutshell. And a Democrat just exposed it on the right's home turf without raising his voice. This is what smart, fearless opposition looks like.
To me, but I'm a Christian, and I think there is no more dangerous form of government than theocracy. Because the only thing worse than a tyrant is a tyrant who thinks they're on a mission from God.
We haven't had any good examples of that in the past.
No.
There's not one that you go, well, that one worked out.
Right. And so this is people trying to use my religion to control people.
Yeah.
That's the name of the game. And we're seeing that here. I mean, I'm an 8th generation Texan. My family's been here since it was Mexico. I love this state. But I've just seen people like Dunn and Wilkes just take us in this far right culture war direction at the expense of actual problems we need to solve. One of the bills that didn't pass last legislative session was a bill that would have provided funding for flood mitigation and emergency systems to get the word out when there's a flood. And we literally just saw the consequence of not passing that.
And here's why this Democrat is dangerous to the right. He's a devout Christian, and he's using his own faith to call out theirs. He'll tell you his faith matters more than almost anything, and that's exactly why he refuses to let them weaponize it. The most dangerous government on earth is a theocracy. The only thing scarier than a tyrant is a tyrant who's convinced God sent him, because you can vote out a normal tyrant, but a man on a divine mission answers to no one. Name the theocracy that ever worked. You can't. History buried every single one. So when Republicans drape themselves in scripture to grab power, that's not devotion, it's a con. And here's the part that should turn every working Texan into a Democrat overnight. While the GOP culture warriors postured about commandments on classroom walls, the bills that actually save lives died. A flood mitigation bill, funding for emergency warning systems so families know when the water's rising, Republicans let it fail. And then everyone watched the consequence play out in real lives. That's the trade the right makes every single time. Theater over safety, performance over people. This is a Democrat who loves his state enough to say it out loud. 8 generations on that land, watching grifters drive it off a cliff while hiding behind God.
We've always had a separation of church and state. It's been very important.
The staunchest defenders for the separation of church and state throughout American history were Protestant Christians. Baptists in particular, right? I mean, the letter Jefferson writes where he first uses that phrase, a wall of separation between church and state, was to the Danbury Baptists. These Protestants were fleeing Europe as religious minorities. Kind of essential to the founding of this country was religious freedom. And so those Christians understood that once the government starts preaching your religion, starts making decisions about your faith, that doesn't lead anywhere good. We should be very suspicious of the state usurping the role of pastors and Sunday school teachers. If you want to deepen your faith, we have churches on every street corner. A lot of them don't have a lot of people in them. This, again, is giving Christianity and religious people broadly a bad name. Because this is what people think about religious people, that we're more interested in imposing our faith or our values or our beliefs on others instead of living it out ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, I look across my church on Sunday mornings and I see a lot of gray hair. I worry about the future of my church, of my faith in this country.
What do you think that's about?
I think a lot of it is well justified because organized religion has done a lot of damage to people. Too many churches, too many faith leaders have abused that trust. A lot of Gen Z, a lot of my fellow millennials, when they hear me talking about my faith and how it informs my public service, they're like, I've never heard of this kind of Christianity, right? Like I was told if you wanted to be a Christian, you had to hate gay people. If you wanted to be a Christian, you had to want to control women, reject science. And so when Gen Z and when millennials were faced with that choice, it was a pretty easy choice for them. They chose their gay friends, they chose women's rights, they chose believing in science. And that, in my opinion, was always a false choice. And in fact, a lot of those positions that I just mentioned are contrary to biblical values, to the teachings of Jesus.
Now here's the history lesson the right has buried, and a Democrat is the one digging it back up. The fiercest defenders of separation of church and state in American history weren't atheists. They were Christians, Baptists specifically. The phrase, a wall of separation between church and state, comes from Jefferson's letter to the Danbury Baptists. These were Protestants who fled Europe because they were the minority getting crushed by a state religion. They built this country on one hard-won truth. The moment government starts preaching your faith for you, it ends in tyranny. The right has forgotten that. Democrats are the ones remembering it. So when Republicans try to make the state play pastor, the people who should be most alarmed are believers themselves. If you want deeper faith, there's a church on every corner, and half of them sit empty. The problem was never too little religion. It's a movement that confused imposing faith with living it, and then he names the wound. He looks across his own congregation and sees nothing but gray hair. He's terrified for the future of the church, and he's honest about why. Organized religion did real damage. The right handed an entire generation an ultimatum. To be Christian, you have to hate gay people, control women, reject science. So Gen Z and millennials made the obvious choice. They chose their gay friends, they chose women's rights, they chose science. They walked out the door. That's not a rejection of Jesus. That's a rejection of the right-wing forgery sold in his name. And Democrats are the ones offering them something real.
Where does this rejection of gay rights come from?
Well, I think broadly we should say that using religion to control the people is a tale as old as time. Issue of homosexuality in particular, something Jesus never talks about.
Is it in the Old Testament?
In the Old Testament, there is a prohibition against men lying with other men.
Right.
We're not sure exactly what it means, and if we're taking it just literally, does that mean that we're also prohibiting same-sex relationships between women? Right? Because that's not prohibited in that called an abomination. This punishment can sometimes be death. And this is true of eating certain foods, of planting two different crops next to each other.
Wearing two different types of cloth.
Sure. He simplified it into two commandments, love God and love neighbor. Those are the only two commandments that we Christians should keep our focus on. Jesus regularly got into conflicts with the religious authorities because he is rejecting legalism and embracing the spirit of the law, which is loving your neighbor as yourself. And so in our modern context, that should mean loving our gay neighbors as ourselves. You know, when I'm looking at the teachings of Jesus, I think it's very clear how we should treat those who are different, those who are left out. I mean, the word homosexuality wasn't even invented until the 19th century. If this was something really was central to Jesus's ministry, I would think he would have said something about it, right? We have 4 Gospels. Tons of teachings from Jesus, and none of them are about this. So I get suspicious when anybody, a televangelist or a politician, tells me that something is central to my faith when Jesus never talks about it. To me, that should ring alarm bells as to what is the agenda here. If we're looking at the last 40, 50 years, the religious right has made a concerted effort to make homosexuality and abortion the 2 biggest issues for Christians. The Southern Baptist Convention was pro-choice until the late 1970s. So this idea that to be a Christian means you have to be anti-gay and anti-abortion, there really is no historical, theological, biblical basis for that opinion.
And here a Democrat dismantles the entire anti-gay theology brick by brick, using the Bible better than the people who claim to own it. Where does this rejection of gay rights even come from? Because Jesus never said one word about it, not one. Yes, there's an Old Testament line about men lying with men. But that same book demands death for eating the wrong food, planting 2 crops side by side, wearing 2 kinds of cloth in one shirt. So either the right enforces all of it, good luck with that poly-cotton blend, or they admit they're cherry-picking the verses that let them target people they already wanted to target. Jesus boiled the whole thing down to 2 commandments. Love God. Love your neighbor. That's it. He spent his entire ministry fighting the religious authorities of his day precisely because he rejected their legalism. Love your neighbor as yourself. And yes, that means your gay neighbor too. The word homosexuality didn't even exist until the 1800s. With 4 full gospels, if this mattered, he'd have mentioned it. He didn't. So when a Republican politician or a televangelist tells you this is the core of your faith, every alarm should go off. Ask who profits. Because for 50 years, the religious right deliberately manufactured gay people and abortion as the defining issues of Christianity. The kicker? The Southern Baptist Convention was pro-choice into the late 70s. This whole package was assembled for political power. It's not ancient. It's not biblical. It's a right-wing product, and Democrats are finally calling it what it is.
I guess all I'm pushing back on is that second step of it's always going to be this way.
Right. It doesn't have to be this way.
That is the key step.
Right.
So I'm
That's
not on.
because you need to run for president. It's 'cause you
Yeah.
We need someone who's actually a good person.
Well,
because the Democrats have very few candidates that are.
Can I actually push back on that?
Please.
Because we were talking about how politics has become a religion.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the ways it does, is people put all their faith in a politician.
No, but I'm not saying that.
I've seen it with Bernie.
Yes.
People, and I like Bernie a whole lot, but some people treat him as if he's a messianic figure.
Well, because he's
Trump on the right,
ones,
people treat him as a messiah in some ways. Like, Bernie's, this is a problem.
One of the only ones that's been remarkably consistent in his entire career.
I know.
And so
but he's still a flawed human being, right? I mean, just like we all are.
Rare. It's so rare.
I know, but my point is,
that should be praised.
But instead of like the change is going to come from your listeners.
Yes.
Not from me. Right, I can be a part of that, but I mean, if there's any hope I can give people, it's that the people in power, including the billionaire mega donors who basically run this whole thing, and I can get more into that if you want.
Please do.
But they are very afraid of the power that the people have. That I know for sure.
And then the moment that should terrify the right. Joe Rogan, the biggest right-leaning megaphone on the planet, turns to a Texas Democrat and tells him to run for president. We need someone who's actually a good person. Let that land. This wasn't a safe progressive podcast. This was the lion's den, the right's home court. And by the end, the host is recruiting the Democrat. That's how you win the people everyone told us were unwinnable. But watch what makes James different from the cynics on the right. He doesn't grab the crown. He pushes back on the praise. He warns that this is exactly how politics rots into religion. People stop thinking and start worshiping, pouring all their hope into one man and waiting to be saved. He saw it with Bernie, people treating him like a messiah. And Rogan admits it. Same thing on the right with Trump, treated like the second coming. That's the disease, the cult of the savior. And here's the difference that defines the two parties right now. The right built a personality cult around one man, while this Democrat is standing on a national stage telling people to stop worshiping politicians altogether. So instead of saying, put your faith in me, he flips it. The change doesn't come from him. It comes from you, the listeners, regular people. He's just here to help. And then the line that should be on every campaign wall in America, the people in power, including the billionaire mega donors who quietly run the whole machine, are terrified of exactly one thing. The power ordinary people have when they finally use it. They spend fortunes keeping you convinced you're helpless, because the day you stop believing that lie is the day their operation collapses. That's the whole contrast in one conversation. A right-wing demagogue tells you he alone can fix it. A real Democrat tells you that you already hold the power, and he's just here to help you find it. One wants your worship, the other wants your participation, one builds a throne, the other hands you the keys. And that's the case for the future of this party, isn't it? This is why we need Democrats who can walk into any room, any audience, anywhere, and win it with nothing but honesty and conviction. Not the tired insiders hiding behind seniority and safe districts, but fighters willing to sit across from Joe Rogan for 3 hours and walk out having flipped the room. That's how you rebuild the coalition. That's how you reach the voters the right thought it owned. That's James Tallerico. And if the Democratic Party is smart for once, they'll get out of his way and let him lead. Because this, right here, is exactly what winning looks like. So what do you guys think of this? Leave your thoughts down in the comments, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.